My biggest wish for women who don't feel like themselves but can't quite put it, or the finger on it, is to advocate for yourself so fiercely.
I'm Kai Sorensen, Director of Podcasts at Balancing Life's Issues, and this is Your Job Now. Let's talk about women's health. It wasn't until 2023 that scientists used actual blood to test menstrual products. For decades, manufacturers used saline or water. That's how little attention women's bodies have received in health research. In today's episode, Wendy Wollner sits down with Dr. Mariah Prince-Allen, a nurse practitioner and founder of Telehealth for Her, to explore how women can reclaim their health and how leaders can build hormone-intelligent workplaces. Because women's health isn't just a personal issue, it's a leadership issue. Here's their conversation.
Morning, afternoon, evening. We're new to each other, so this is going to be doubly exciting. So go ahead. Let me hear your elevator pitch. Go for it. Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Mariah Prince-Allen. I am a board-certified nurse practitioner, and I am the owner of Telehealth for Her, which is a virtual women's wellness practice where we help high-achieving women who are executives and entrepreneurs to balance their hormones, fix their gut, and to have sustainable weight loss, but more importantly, to really feel like themselves again. And then I just recently got into corporate wellness consulting, where I've been helping businesses develop what I like to call a hormone-intelligent workplace. So that is a little bit about me, and recently have been a keynote speaker and just recently gave my first TEDx talk.
Yes.
Yes.
You're rocking the world.
Yes, I am trying to make a difference in this world when it comes down to women and their health, particularly their hormone health.
Yeah. Well, certainly something that's been super interesting to me just personally and professionally. So a 1 second story about me that not many people know is I was super young when I got my period. And I had super horrible periods. I'm sure this story sounds so familiar to you.
Yes.
For those of you listening, you're probably very uncomfortable right now because of me talking about this, right? And I spent a good chunk of my time being told, suck it up, even by my own mom, who's like my best friend, right? Like, this is being a woman. You're being a woman. You tough it up.
Yep.
And
How old are you?
I was 11 when I got.
I was 10.
10. Okay. Kindred spirits here, right?
Yes.
The Thursday, right before I kind of had an idea, I was getting engaged. I was keeled over in pain, rushed to the hospital. And long story short, it was the first of many operations. I had PCOS. At that time, it was called Stein-Leventhal, has changed.
Yeah.
Super common for women, right?
Very common.
Yes. And it's so interesting to me because, I did end up having hysterectomy. I did take fertility drugs for, 2 of my 3 children. I hope they knew that. They know that now. But the overriding thing, what interests me about you is can you tell I'm an open book? I talk about everything.
Yes, I love that. Me too.
But not this. This was something. And the only reason I ended up telling, would you like to know why I ended up talking about this?
I would love to know why.
Well, it's so nice of you to ask me. Thank you. I was at an interview with a client. And if you can imagine, I'm on Park Avenue in his office in investment banking on this beautiful white couch. Can you envision this?
Yeah. And you mess up the white couch.
Piles and piles of blood.
Oh, man.
And he wants to call 911, which of course I understood. Of course I knew I didn't need to call 911.
Right.
And I remember the shame, that horrible, like, this is my fault. I'm the one that blanked it up. I did this. I caused this. Now I really can't tell anyone. And that's when I actually started getting involved in women's health.
Love that.
And I realized that it's, and the news is worse now than ever. We've moved far backwards, but now you're in this world of trying to fix this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things too that I'm so passionate about too, is because we used to actually treat women and their hormone health, especially perimenopause and menopause. Well, not so much perimenopause because I don't think we just really knew what that was. And then in 2002, when the Women's Health Initiative study came out, we just ripped away hormone replacement therapy out of fear that we were going to cause women to have breast cancers and strokes and heart attacks and blood clots. We let one single study change the medical world for decades.
Yep.
And it wasn't really until I think it was July 17th the FDA finally had a panel with some medical experts that said, we need to look at this black box warning. Like, this isn't quite right. Like, HRT is
Sure.
a tool for women that they need. And it's way more than just their hot flashes. And I'm like, thank you. Finally, I've been saying that for a few years now.
I want to unpack something that you said that
Yeah.
isn't as obvious. It is to you as an expert, but dealing with the audience as I do is that, you just made a huge statement that we just don't understand. So we really didn't start talking about women's health until the 2000 year. We lived in a world of men's health, 100% men's health. Every study was done on men. Everything was talked about with men. Everything was men. And then they just said, well, women must be about the same, so we'll just lump them in.
Right. Yeah. And we are definitely not
And
like
you're still not even understanding the difference between, race and culture and all the different things that go into it, right? So we have a lot to learn. So the first thing is women's health is brand new. We're literally in our infancy stage.
Yeah, because women, just like children, we're considered a vulnerable population in research studies.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of shocking to me. So we don't have the data that we necessarily might want or might need. And then the second thing is there's an emotional component to it.
I think the whole field, especially when you think about perimenopause and menopause, is new because I think celebrities have started to talk about their experiences, and we realized that, every woman was going to go through this. And despite your socioeconomic status or your educational well-being, no woman had the resources to prepare for them. And I think that was where we started to level the playing field, I think, when it came down to menopause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long it is, right?
Yes.
Not right. So that's so interesting. And it is interesting because, in the corporate wellness space, which we're both in, I will say we do get comments and questions. We do get seminar requests on menopause, which I'm super happy to hear.
Yeah.
Everything you want to know in, 5 minutes. But I thought for the sake of our listeners, I would start with some real tool bag. The number one point, the number one action that you want not just women, but people to know about women's health is what? What's the number? You go first and I'll tell you mine.
I think the number one thing I want people to understand about women's health is that it's not a women's health issue.
Okay.
It is definitely a public health crisis, especially when it comes down to menopause. It's a leadership issue. Like, it's not just a one-person issue.
So we'll play tennis here. I'll give you mine. Yeah. Mine is that I and you got to give me a minute because I have to do a convoluted story. But when I went to buy my first car, my dad said, get white walls. Get white wall tires, get white wall tires. So I didn't know what it was, but I trusted my dad. I got the car. I came home and I showed him. I'm like, and he's like, Wendy, there are no white wall tires. Like, these are black wall. I'm like, what do you mean? The guy said, I totally believed the guy.
Right.
I didn't realize that they should show the white walls, right? So many years later, after I got my full hysterectomy, the gynecologist said, we're going to do we're going to test you for cervical cancer. Mm-hmm. Well, if you had a hysterectomy, you no longer have a cervix.
Correct.
So to continue going for cervical cancer treatments screenings makes no sense. But if you don't learn to ask the question.
Right.
You just go into autopilot, like, sell me the black wall. I don't know the difference. I'm not going to say anything. Yeah. So my number one is ask everything that you might ever think of, including the stupidest things.
Yeah. I love that too.
It's just not obvious.
Right.
And I think it's really important because in this situation, I normally say go talk to your parents or your moms, your dads, but because the studies or fields are so new, they're not going to be a good resource, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I learned when I entered into the women's health, hormone health arena is that I actually had a conversation with my OBGYN and I said, do you think this is crazy if I go into this? And she said, no, I think it's amazing because as an OBGYN, I didn't learn about menopause, believe it or not. And a lot of people come to me about their menopause hormone issues and I don't know what to do with them.
What's something very personal that you do that helps you with your hormones?
I think for me, one of the things that I do is I really value my peace. And try to limit as much.
Wait, what is peace? I don't even know what that means.
I know, right? And try to limit stress. I think one of the things that we don't think about as women is stress really does impact our hormones. And so I really am strict about saying, okay, yes to certain things and no to things that I feel like will just amplify my stress and not be good for my overall health.
So what's your morning routine?
My morning routine is I get up in the mornings. I usually am like kind of like looking at my calendar for the day. I will get up and work out. I'll usually have like a cup of coffee or something if I want to, if I feel like I didn't rest well. But I try to start my mornings off slow. I am not one to just get out of the bed and get to moving. That is
Love
not
that.
good for your
I think that's
cortisol.
a really, I'd like to sit there for a minute because I
Yeah.
think that's something, we saw some news this morning that working moms are leaving corporate America again. And I think that's a really important point. Part of the reason they're leaving is exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
They want a morning routine that works for their family.
Yep.
So
Without having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to have
that's
me
exactly
time.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a really important point. For some people, it may be easy to go slow. And for others, that's as hard as getting into an Ivy League school. Like, take
Yes.
it down a notch. Just take it down a notch.
Literally, I wrote an article on LinkedIn that says, "Is your morning routine sabotaging your hormones?"
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
most of them were like, "I had no idea. I was doing all the things you mentioned."
Yeah. Now, I think what's also amazing about it is bringing gender into the health conversation.
Yes.
So this is a story that I rarely tell, but I saved it for you. I was on a cruise in Alaska and I had massive seizures. And luckily did go to a neurologist that had been studying the correlation between seizures and menopause.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, Brooke Shields then had seizures very shortly thereafter. And this idea of menopause and seizures came to be. And one of the correlations, maybe, of course not proven, is alcohol. So let's talk a little bit about that glass of wine.
Yes.
Two or three or four.
I tell my clients all the time, your glass of wine every night will give you breast cancer faster than your HRT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you just stay there for a minute? Because what you just said is something very powerful. You and I are both fighting a very powerful lobby. So if you would repeat what you just said, slower and more impactful for women to hear, because we do need to root cause it, that would be important.
Your glass of wine every night is going to give you breast cancer quicker than hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting to own some things that we do know, and that's one. And we always invite people to listen to our podcast to get really hard advice and action steps. So we've got slow mornings, reduce. I don't talk all, and I can tell you that I was at a women's event last night, and I was very disappointed that I had to justify my decision yet again. So I hope women continue to support other women who don't drink.
Yeah. And there's some really good mocktails out there.
Thank you. I actually filed a little complaint with the restaurant. And in Europe, I have to tell you, non-alcoholic wine is found everywhere in every single restaurant. It's a big part of their culture. And I'm shouting out to the American industry to say, get some de-alcoholized wine. Like there's tons of really good, if you were to say the next shocking thing that you think no one knows, what would it be?
I think the next shocking thing that I would say is that menopause causes the United States to lose $1.8 billion every year due to lost work productivity in women.
And the answer to that is what?
The answer to that is leaders, executives, business owners actually learning how to have a hormone-intelligent workplace to support the women in menopause.
Right? Our podcast, and this is your job now.
Yes. And
for the leaders who say, I don't want to talk about menopause. I don't want to, I don't want to deal with that. HR, send it to HR, and the HR says HIPAA privacy. I think the third piece of you said, I don't really care if you care enough. Your bottom line will care.
Yes. Your retention rates, your productivity. Yes. All of that stuff matters because women who are going through menopause, they make up such a large portion of the workforce. And I think, we think about menopause, we think of women in their 50s and 60s that's, halfway out of their career, but it's not. It's the women in their 40s the women in their
Yeah.
late 30s.
Well, and you know what's interesting about this is now that we know that they're just leaving corporate America, they're going to be starting competitor companies.
Yes,
And
they
I just
are.
think and I'm like, you go, girl.
And
Like,
when
you
women
get
start a
that.
business,
I love it. I love it. And you know what? I can tell you, even the other day, one of my employees was struggling with it. We have a video on policy, super strict about it. But you know, she had teams me. I have a bad headache. I get it. Headaches are part of it. Headaches are part of the journey.
Yeah.
And so on that day, the right thing for me to do is say, no videos. Why don't you just go low key, turn the lights down. Let's support the headache for today. You don't need to take a sick day because, you know, you don't need to but you can work around your headaches. We can create an environment that will support that. So I think that's an interesting idea of leaders being super empathetic.
Yeah.
It sounds so easy, right?
It's not. And I think too, what
I
makes it
know.
hard is that most leaders of companies are men.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And unfortunately, and I say that with all bias, we've also never had a woman president.
no. And I think when we get women in the right positions, we'll see a drastic change in women's health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how far we are. So closing tips. What can people do? What is your biggest wish for us right now? Send us off with a bang.
My biggest wish for women who don't feel like themselves but can't quite put it, the finger on it, is to advocate for yourself so fiercely. If you're not getting the answers that you need from your healthcare provider, find another one. You may have to actually invest in your healthcare. And I think that's important. And then I would say too, for the business owners, is to just learn a little bit, even if it's just a little bit nugget, to have that empathy for your coworkers, your colleagues, your employees, so that we can keep women in the workforce.
Yeah, I love it. We are wishing you all the success in your new endeavor.
Thank
Please stay
you.
in touch.
Thanks
for joining.
Will. Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome.
Thanks for listening to This Is Your Job Now, produced by me, Kai. If this episode made you think or made you feel, we hope it also made you realize you don't have to figure this out all alone. Leadership today is about presence, not perfection. To learn more, follow Wendy Wollner on LinkedIn, subscribe to Balancing Life's Issues on YouTube, or stream the podcast wherever you listen. Because if you're leading people, this is your job now. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah.